We are very fortunate to live in the great state of Texas. This is the state that is leading the nation in recovery. In fact, one of the only states that actually is recovering. And in fact, I even hate to say it that way. Texas hasn't needed a recovery because Texas, you are still free. It is still the Republic of Texas, and they understand better than most places. I am gravely concerned about the state of Texas because as Pat and I talked about a couple of years ago, about 4 years ago, before we moved down here, one of the reasons we moved down here is because we saw a story out of El Paso where you can't teach that the Alamo, you can't teach it anymore because it's considered racist. Are you kidding me? There's a group of patriots sticking up for the Mexicans so they can be free. That's what that's what that whole thing was about. And if we lose the great state of Texas, we lose the rest of the republic. And there is a huge push to turn Texas blue. Wendy Davis is one of them, but the money that is pumping into this state to turn it like California or to do to Texas what they did to Colorado is happening in a big way. And one of the guys, to quote Wendy Davis, who is, or to paraphrase her, who is standing against that, is Greg Abbott. He is running now for governor of Texas, and we welcome him to the show now. Hello, sir. How are you?
Glenn, I'm doing great. Such an honor to be with you.
Thank you. You are you're a guy. When Wendy Davis said, the joke, she meant it that you wouldn't stand. You're in a wheelchair, and we wondered. So, are you a kind of guy that has fun with that, takes offense at that, or what?
I typically start out almost every speech I give making some kind of joke about me being in a wheelchair. My slogan is, in this campaign, Texans need to roll with Greg, roll towards victory. But I have some great stories. When I tell people about the accident, I was a young man. I was 26 years old when I was out jogging and a big tree fell on me. It crashed down into my back, crushing my vertebrae and my spinal cord. And that is what has left me in a wheelchair. But typically when I tell stories like that, people are shaking their heads wondering, how slow was I jogging to get hit by a falling tree? but there's something more powerful that I lead this into, because these doctors in Houston, where I was living at the time, they pieced my life back together by fusing my vertebrae back together, and then they inserted steel rods into my back that will remain in my back the rest of my life. The point, Glenn, is that you've spoken to countless politicians who say that, if they're elected, they'll go into office, and when they have to make the tough decisions, they will have a spine of steel. I really do have a steel spine that I use to fight for Texans every single day.
I don't want to harp on this, but I just want to point out one thing. We have Greg behind a desk now because we're up on a platform, and I'm not handy capable here, I guess. And so we put him at a desk, but I was struck by, behind me is the set of the Oval Office, and the only reason why that desk looks the way it does, do you know why that door is on front of that desk, the Oval Office desk?
Probably because of FDR.
Yeah, he didn't want to be seen in a wheelchair. How different are things now? I can't even imagine a time when we wouldn't elect a president because he was in a wheelchair, and they still don't want to show that even at the memorial. They still barely even show just a little bit of a wheel on him.
And, that's very disappointing. But Texans may be different than the rest of Americans. What Texans believe in, you talked about the Alamo at the very beginning. Texas got its birth as a known country of its own independent nation, and then as a state of the United States, because we had to fight and overcome adversity. Overcoming adversity is part and parcel of what it means to be a Texan. So having a attorney general, as I am now, or having a candidate running for governor who has faced adversity, overcome adversity, is a quintessential trait of what it means to be a tough Texan.
I really, truly believe, first of all, you've described your job as, I get up in the morning and I go and sue Barack Obama and I go home. If Texas doesn't stand, we're in trouble. And the government, we had Ted Cruz on, who used to work for you, earlier today, and he went over the lawsuits and the things that, we've had to file here in Texas just to keep the federal government from literally taking over. In Wyoming, the federal government, the EPA, just took 1 million acres of their land. How out of control is the federal government, and why should we actually believe that we can win this fight?
Well, I got to see a copy of the materials that Ted Cruz filed, and it reads pretty much like my biography, because it is a listing of some of the lawsuits that I filed against the Obama administration for the past 5 years. Altogether, already, I've sued Barack Obama and his administration 33 times.
How many times have you won?
The final record, because there's so many cases still pending, is something like 10 victories, 5 losses. In some are mixed, like in the Obamacare case, for example. We won on our states-based issue, saying that the Obama administration and Congress violated the Constitution by forcing Texas to expand its Medicaid system, contrary to what we may want to do. However, the case was a loss because Chief Justice Roberts recharacterized Obamacare as the Obama tax. But here's the point that you're trying to draw, and that is, in my adult life and during my studied life, I have never seen a president so cavalierly contradict and refuse to apply the Constitution and the laws of this country like we have the Obama administration. I wish I didn't have to sue the president a single time, because I wish we had a president who would follow and obey the law, but we don't.
Give me some example. How many times did Texas sue George W. Bush? I know we did it with the case on the World Court.
The World Court, the Medellin case. There was another case involving, I think it involved the Department of Interior, the ability of tribes to be involved in the process of the gaming industry. And there may have been a third one. It was either 2 or 3 times during the 8 years
and
of the Bush.
That's about a normal, for Bill Clinton, it was probably about the same thing.
Right.
Okay.
Are other states doing this too, General Abbott, or is it just Texas? Are other states fighting for their sovereignty as strongly as you were fighting for Texas?
Well, Texas has the most lawsuits that have been waged against the Obama administration. However, our fellow states are involved in this process also. Maybe not as high numerically, but certainly in spirit. And some of them have joined together with us in some of these fights. Others, maybe not so much. There is one factor that has elevated Texas even higher than other states, and that's the lawsuits against the completely out of control EPA. And because Texas is such a centerpiece of the energy production in this country, is a reason why Texas has more legal actions against the EPA.
So let me go here. I just gave a speech to the GOP this last weekend, and I pretty much read them the Riot Act. I mean, they're good members of the GOP, but I mean, in the national GOP, it's despicable what's going on. You got to stand for the Constitution. But here in Texas, there is a real concerted effort from the left to do what they did to California and do what they did to Colorado to Texas. And I don't see a lot of Texans walking around in the streets saying, we could lose our state. I mean, what they did to the rest of the country, where it just slowly seeps in and you just don't even recognize it until it's too late, is happening right now. And are there enough Texans that are saying, whoa, this is a real problem?
Glenn, I announced that I was running for governor of Texas back in July. And month after month after month, I've been involved in a pitched battle against a very profound opponent. And my opponent's name was complacency. A lot of Texans did not realize that there really was this pitched battle, because they thought, well, Texas is a conservative state. We will always be a conservative state. And they were asleep about the fact that the Obama administration itself is working with the Democrat candidate for governor. Barack Obama's national field director, Jeremy Byrd, is here in the state of Texas organizing neighborhoods and precincts to turn out the vote like they did in Colorado, like they did in Ohio. Barack Obama's finance directors helping to raise money. Barack Obama's pollster is working for the Democrat candidate. Barack Obama's campaign team is helping to manage the campaign. This is the Barack Obama administration that is basically relocated to the state of Texas to make Texas more like his liberal dream version of what the United States should be. This is extremely dangerous. There will be millions of dollars spent in this race, a lot of it raised from states outside of Texas that want Texas to become more like California.
So I've said this to Rick Perry for a long time. He's going and he's doing a great job bringing new businesses here. But as I spoke to a group of CEOs here in Dallas, I said, you guys know why you moved here. But do the employees that you brought with you, do they know? Because all they did is they said, oh, the company's moving to Texas. And most likely their wife said, Texas? I don't want to live in the sticks with a bunch of cows. And they're like, no, honey, it's not like that. And they moved. They had no real connection to, we can't do business in California or wherever they're moving from. And I've begged Rick, you've got to do a campaign. Come to Texas, not for the taxes or the weather. Come to Texas because you're free. You're free to pursue your own dreams. Are you concerned about the influx of people? Because I tell you, these carpetbaggers that just move in at the last minute. I'm worried. I'm more worried at times about the northern border than I am the southern border. Are you concerned that people are coming in because of the jobs and they don't really understand Texas?
Part of our campaign is talking about securing the border, and we're talking about the Red River, not the Rio Grande River, when we do that. But, you know, let me give you one example that ties all this together. It's an example I talk about in my presentations. It's about Jay Adair, who is the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar business called Coparts, who moved from California here to the DFW area. And he was talking about why he did it, and that's because taxes were too high, regulations too high in California. But he said that when he got here, he realized that Texas had one thing that Californians did not, and that was freedom. We have a freedom that's incomparable around the country. But he said that the people that he's bringing here from California to work believe in that freedom. They love that freedom. The gun manufacturers that I've talked to from other states that are fleeing those other states because their ability to either manufacture, sell, or have their customers use guns in those states is being trimmed. These are conservatives who are relocating from these other states to the state of Texas because Texas is the last bastion of freedom in this country.
I have a story that I'll probably be sharing in the next month based around the Second Amendment that I think will blow people's minds, that I've kept my mouth shut for quite some time. But even in Texas, you know, we love our guns, but it's not just because we're hunters. It's because we have a right to carry our guns. You know, there's a reason the Soviets didn't have an invasion plan through Texas, because we knew our rights, we knew our Constitution, and we had our guns. What are you going to do to make sure that we don't lose the Second Amendment, no matter what the rest of the country might do?
Well, I've already been involved in 2 fights at the United States Supreme Court, defending and guaranteeing the individual right to keep and bear arms. But we're even looking at laws in the state of Texas to find ways that we can even more broadly expand your guaranteed Second Amendment rights. One thing that I've talked about in my platform for governor is bringing open carry to the state of Texas, because it is a guaranteed right under the Second Amendment.
I love that.
That's great. Your opponent, Wendy Davis, which I can see as being an attractive opponent if you were running for Senate in Massachusetts. She would make sense in a state like that, where they like when their candidates make up things in their biographies. But also, in addition to that, she's known as a national person because of her stance on abortion. And as a guy who comes from the Northeast, and I'm new to Texas, that stance, as she's described and as she stood up for it, seems completely out of step with the people I know in Texas.
I have a hard time believing she's even a serious candidate, which is not a good place to be, because the money and the power behind her makes her a very serious candidate. But who's she appealing to?
Let me go to both questions, but Glenn, let me answer yours first, and that is, she is a very serious candidate for 2 big reasons. One, because you have the Barack Obama machinery at a national scale working to both fund and organize her campaign. You remember when Barack Obama ran both times, he had what I call mystery money. he would get seemingly hundreds of millions of dollars to these online contributions that came out of nowhere to fund his campaign. Wendy Davis is getting the same thing in contributions that are too low to be able to report, but more than 70,000 low-dollar donations that add up to millions of dollars for. But secondly, at the other end, you have a big-time trial lawyer in Texas who gave her one check for $1 million. And he said there's a lot more where that came from. So the money and the organization are there to make her a very serious candidate. But on the other issue, the thing that Wendy Davis is known for more than anything else is standing for one issue.
Abortion.
And that is late-term abortion.
Thank you.
Her stance is contrary to the vast majority of Americans, and what a lot of Americans don't understand, her stance is contrary to the country of France. Her position.
Wow.
If France, they will not allow abortion in the late term the way that Wendy Davis is seeking.
Is she for partial birth abortion too?
Well, what Texas did in this last legislative session was to pass the fetal pain law, so that when a fetus can feel pain, when a doctor is trying to abort the fetus, we're saying, no, that's where we absolutely are going to draw the line.
She won't even draw that line.
No, she's against stopping abortion, even though a fetus can
pain.
visibly show signs of feeling pain.
That is unbelievable.
The law passed in Texas says that after 5 months of pregnancy, a woman cannot have an abortion unless the health and safety of the mother is involved.
And that's a restriction that is more lenient than Roe versus Wade.
Yeah.
Greg is going to be on with me at 5 o'clock. We'll have a little bit more chance to chat with him. We wish you all the best of luck. What's your website?
GregAbbott.com.
Okay, easy. GregAbbott.com. And this is a fight for the whole country because millions are pouring in from the left. And if Greg sounds like somebody that you can support, if you would like to help support Texas remaining free and Texas, I'm telling you, if we lose Texas, we lose the country. Greg, we'll talk to you at 5 o'clock, after 5 o'clock today.